beautiful.
Hello, lovers of the world. This is Cinta speaking. I usually love my birthday. I love the attention I get from my family and friends. I love the gifts I receive. I love celebrating with my loved ones. But this year, 2024, I felt kind of burdened by the fact that I'm growing up. It's so cliche to feel scared that you're getting older. And rationally, I know that I have my whole life ahead of me, so I shouldn't feel scared, but I do anyway. Leading up to my birth month, I listened to Madonna's album Ray of Light, which was released in the same year that I was born in. When I listened to the songs, I couldn't help but reflect on how these songs are as old as I am, which sparked the idea of only listening to albums that were released in the year that I was born in for the rest of the month. So as you can see, we're back on the same tier list that I use for my monthly wrap-up videos, but with my new additions to rank. I like keeping everything in the same place so that when I have to add new albums into the list, it becomes easier to compare and contrast the new things that I've listened to and the other stuff that I've put in the same tier. Now, usually before I rank, I explain my tier list rules and the grading system that I have behind it, but I've decided to omit them in this video to save us some time. Hopefully the names of the tiers are self-explanatory enough that you can still follow along, but if not, you are welcome to watch my last video where I do talk about my grading system there. My reviewing style relies mostly on how I feel about a particular album. I don't have any musical theory background, so a lot of it is just like the vibes for me. If I know nothing else about music, I at least know how it makes me feel. I did put timestamps in the description to indicate when I start talking about a particular project in case you want to skip over some sections or if you want to skip to a particular album. But now that that's out of the way, let's get to what I listened to for this challenge. So first I listened to If I Had a Hammer, Songs of Hope and Struggle by Pete Seeger. So I understand that this might be a super random pick, but let me explain. I recently finished reading this book by Anthony Seeger, who is a really important and very prolific ethnomusicologist. Anthony Seeger is Pete Seeger's nephew. So Pete Seeger was an American labor activist and musician, and when I was reading Anthony Seeger's book, I was also curious about Pete Seeger's life. I have only heard some bits and pieces about him, and if you're a big Hosier fan, you'll know that Seeger is one of the people he talks about in his song Nina Cried Power. Before listening to this project, I only knew one song from Pete Seeger, which was called Coyote My Little Brother, because it was covered by Mitski earlier this year. When I found out that Pete Seeger had an album released in 1998, well, I just took it and ran with it. I did hesitate to include this album in this project because Songs of Hope and Struggle is technically a compilation album that was released after he had passed away. So it's not really a body of work in the sense that it was a album that was constructed around a specific idea or narrative. But to be fair, when Pete Seeger was still alive and making music, he was influenced by the genre conventions of his time, and the album as an art form as we know it today was not really how people consumed music at the time. Seeger's music was more of a conduit for his activism for the working class. So a lot of the songs that he performed were actually not even songs he himself wrote. They were just songs that were really popular, and he used melodies and tunes that have been around for much longer that the working class were familiar with, so that he could better recruit them to the cause. I enjoyed listening to this compilation album because it felt like I was listening to music from a world that doesn't exist anymore. Usually with lyrics, you have to analyze and comb through the words to find the hidden meanings, but all of his songs in this album are basically saying the same thing. Join a union, join the fight, we care about you, we need you to care about us. And I just found the simplicity of it very comforting. Recently, I've been trying to get more involved in like grassroots activism in my city and just trying to be more present with what's going on in the world around me. So I think I just found it both sad and soothing that the talking points of an activist that's been dead for decades is still being talked about in our present day. It kind of just feels like not much has changed, but I feel like it comforts me a little bit to know that I am not alone in my frustrations with the world, and that even though we're separated by time and space, I have allies in the past, in the present, and in the future. So maybe I will write something a little bit longer than this. This video is not the place for that. I don't want to get too carried away because I will end up rambling about folk music and ethnomusicology and existential dread, and this is just not what the video is about. I'm just gonna say I really enjoyed listening to this, and I'm gonna put this in Gems Found in the Mind. And then I listened to Taming the Tiger by Joni Mitchell. Joni Mitchell is a very famous Canadian folk singer, and even though I haven't heard 80% of her entire discography, I would consider myself a big Joni Mitchell fan. Aside from Blue and Ladies of the Canyon, this is the third album that I've listened to from her in its entirety. Still, I really love her songwriting, and she just comforts me in a way that makes me feel like growing up isn't so scary. Now, fun fact about the album title. This album was released in 1998, which was the year of the tiger, and I would know because I was born in that year, and that's where I think the title comes from. For some reason, this project actually reminds me of Clairo's 2024 project Charm. Clairo has always cited Joni Mitchell as an inspiration, but I always assumed it was because of Joni Mitchell's confessional and intimate songwriting talents. But in this project, I can see and feel the very clear jazzy pop influences and easy listening elements being incorporated into her music. I will be honest and say that I was not really a big fan of Taming the Tiger, and it's a combination of two very big reasons. One, I'm just not a big fan of pop jazz easy listening fusion sound that this album is doing. And two, I just feel like Joni's lyrics are not resonating with me as much as her other work typically does. However, I did have a song that stood out to me, which was called Stay in Touch. So one of my acquaintances just left the country, and I kept thinking about this song leading up to her departure. I met this acquaintance through a local activist group that I was trying to be more active in. And as we often say to others, the older we get, often promise to stay in touch with each other because we get pulled into different directions as we, progress further in life. And I just also wondered that whether this song was talking about staying in touch with our friends as they kind of grow further away from us, and telling us to stay in touch with reality, stay in touch with what's really important. And so I think that's my interpretation of the lyrics. I didn't really like this too much. I'm just gonna put this in the most album ever. And then I listened to Mezzanine by Massive Attack. So Massive Attack is a UK-based music group that pioneered the trip-hop genre. I think this is the first time I've experienced trip-hop in its purest form. I definitely feel like I've encountered music that was inspired by trip-hop, or at the very least was inspired by Massive Attack in some way, but this is my first time experiencing a full album of it as on its own. And I have to say, I don't think this is for me. I want to give the genre another try, but so many people online say that this album is like basically the essence of trip hop as a genre. So does that mean if I don't like this album, it means that I don't like trip hop as a genre? If you're a fan of either this band or the genre, let me know in the comments. I would be really curious to see what people say. But I wasn't really a big fan of this, and maybe I just need some more time with it. But for now, I'm just gonna put this in the most album ever. And then I listened to The Sound of Perseverance by Death. So Death is a metal band that my friend introduced me to. I listened to one of their albums earlier this year called Symbolic, and I enjoyed that album. So I had pretty decent hopes for this one. But for some reason, I don't think this stuck with me the same way that Symbolic did. I am still new to metal as a genre, so it might just be that I need more time to marinate with the genre conventions. But for now, I think I'll just put this in the most album ever as well. And then I listened to Adore by The Smashing Pumpkins. The Smashing Pumpkins is an American alternative rock band from Chicago that was formed in 1988. And their most popular song is probably 1979. In fact, previously, before listening to this project, that was the only song from the band that I've heard. So I kind of let that song color my expectations for this album. And when I finally finished listening to Adore, I just found it to be a very standard indie rock album that I didn't feel any particular feeling towards. I only liked maybe 2 songs, Perfect and Apples Plus Oranges. But other than that, I think I'm just gonna put this in the most album ever. And then I listened to Sketches for My Sweetheart the Drunk by Jeff Buckley. So similar to the Pete Seeger album, this is a compilation album, not a real album. So this is a collection of studio demos recorded between 1996 and 1997. Jeff Buckley tragically died in 1997. And in fact, they were never supposed to be released because Jeff Buckley wasn't happy with them. The company that signed Jeff Buckley wanted to release them anyways because Jeff Buckley's last record didn't make the company enough money. The company still owned these recordings and they wanted to release them to cash in on his death and make sure that they make back the money that they invested into him, which is kind of scummy. Thankfully, I hear that the final product was the result of his peers and colleagues working very hard to make sure that the recordings and this album fit Buckley's vision as much as possible. So I think it's not really fair to say that this was like a very carefully coordinated or curated body of work by the artist himself, and therefore I can't really comment too much on its overall cohesion or whether or not the thematic elements gel well. But there are other things that I can definitely comment on. This is my first exposure to Jeff Buckley, by the way. I have heard his name kind of thrown around in musical discussions before, and I've probably heard his rendition of Hallelujah at some point in my life, but this is my first ever experience with him. And I gotta say, I was really impressed with the project. I found his delivery in all of the songs to be very evocative and emotional. Whatever it is that he wants me to feel in the song, I end up feeling it. And I feel like some singers are technically proficient vocalists, and while Jeff Buckley's voice is decent enough, it's really the way that he delivers his lines that really pull me in. My favorite song is Everybody Here Wants You. I feel so wretched and racked with desire when I hear this song. Like I cannot, like it's like I feel drunk and like I cannot see straight with how much I want this hypothetical person, and the way that he delivers his desire with this tension and then this release, it's just very hypnotic, and I just feel so drawn to it, just so absolutely magical and magnetic. I know that I should be mad that the company was so like hell-bent on releasing these unfinished demos against Jeff Buckley's wishes just because they wanted to profit off of his work, and not even because, you know, the world needs to hear his as much music as he had to offer. It's not even that like noble reasoning. It's that they just wanted to earn more money. But I just can't help but feel a little bit grateful that they did release it, because I just found them so captivating and sad that he had passed away so suddenly. I feel like the world would have been so different if he survived and continued to make music. So yeah, I look forward to listening to Grace, which is his debut and last album. So yeah, I'm gonna put this album in French toast. And then I listened to Rufus Wainwright's self-titled debut album. Rufus Wainwright is a Canadian-American male singer-songwriter. I knew 2 songs from him before embarking on this album. One is called Cigarettes and Chocolate Milk, and his feature on Carly Rae Jepsen's song The Loneliest Time from 2023. Since this is his debut album, I wasn't really sure what to expect from it, and I have to say, I don't think I enjoyed it that much. His singing style has a drunken and depressed musical theater vibe to it that I'm just not gelling too well. And it's almost like every syllable is drawled out and dripping with bourgeois blues that I found myself kind of getting sick of eventually. So I'm gonna put this in At Least I Learned Something New. And then I listened to Stratosphere by Duster. Duster is an American indie rock band formed in San Jose, California in 1996, known for slowcore and space rock revival, whatever that means. And Stratosphere is their debut album. Now, when I set out to make this project, what I did was I went to Rate Your Music and I went to the 1998 page to see what was the highest rated albums of that year. And it was on that page, which is why I listened to it. I did not know anything else about this band, not even sure what slowcore is supposed to be, but I was excited to learn something completely new. And I found this project to just be very sleepy and lethargic. Maybe that's just the point of slowcore, or maybe that's just the band style. Regardless, I kind of just found the music to be quite aimless in a way that I didn't resonate with. And there are pockets in certain songs of the album that interested me, but not enough to make me want to revisit this in the future. Some songs that I did like was Echo Brave and Heading for the Door, but other than that, I think I'm just gonna put this in the most album ever. Lastly, I listened to The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill by Lauryn Hill. So Lauryn Hill is an American rapper, singer, songwriter, record producer, and actress. She was originally the front woman of the group The Fugees, and The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is her debut solo album. This project is the most well-known album on this list, and because of that, I was impossibly intimidated by it, and I think that's why I kind of left it towards the very end. You have to understand that Lauryn Hill was never really a big part of my childhood growing up, and her name or status wasn't really present. I kind of learned of her in my adult years, and the way people talk about her, it kind of made me a bit intimidated embarking on this because I had this sinking suspicion that I wasn't going to understand a lot of her music. So I already knew going into it that I was going to struggle with understanding the themes and the lyrics, but I definitely appreciated the learning opportunity it afforded me. I've never really been a big hip hop fan. There's only a few artists that I would consistently listen to. I tend to lean towards R&B or vocals focused songs anyway, and unsurprisingly, I gravitated towards those tracks that are more vocal focused in this album than the more rap focused songs of the album. Her songwriting is also devastatingly confessional and intimate. I almost don't know what to do with myself when confronted with it. For example, X Factor is just a textbook toxic relationship. Really hurts to listen to knowing that this is all like so real and that she had experienced all of this like super young. Some other personal lyrical highlights for me are To Zion and Superstar, and other songs that I liked were When It Hurts So Bad and That Thing. But I think I'm gonna put this in Gems Found in the Mine. And yeah, that's all I listened to for this project. I really want to do this again more often in the future. I'm just gonna pick like other random albums that came out in 1998. And if you want to see that video, please make sure to subscribe. I know we have a whole year to wait for that next project video, but I am looking forward to it myself. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please hit the like button. I'd love to hear from you guys what your thoughts and opinions are on these albums. Let me know in the comments. All my social media links are down in the description alongside my Coffee and Patreon page if you want to support me financially. Otherwise, I can't wait to share my love with you next time. I'll see you soon.